Welcome to the Roundtable at Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church, a podcast of discussions with substance. Join our staff and leaders of our church as we journey through topics that inform, engage, and inspire the daily life of our church.
Hello and welcome to another Roundtable with Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church. We are so excited to be returning to talk more about worship, and today I am joined by a lot of our music staff to talk about worship, so really excited about that. I'm Kathleen McMurray, the pastor of Connecting Ministries and Worship, excited to be with you today.
And I'm Frode Gundersen. I am new here, and I'm excited to be on staff with you all. I am the director of Music, Arts, and Worship, and I started last week. Yeah.
I'm Brooke Sanchez-Hobbs. I'm one of the contemporary worship leaders on staff, and I also work with our student ministry, and I'm working towards building up a youth worship team this fall, so super exciting stuff.
My name is Trenton Teegarden. I'm also one of our other contemporary worship leaders, and I also work with children's and families opportunities for worship here at Pulaski Heights.
So what are some of the most, if you could pick a few, incredible worship experiences that you've had, times where you just come out of worship and say, oh, wow, I went to worship. This was worship.
I think for me, I think of a specific group that I had the opportunity of leading worship for in my time in Northwest Arkansas. Another door that got opened for me was leading worship for a recovery ministry. And man, those people were desperate for Jesus. And there's just something really cool about gathering together with people who are just so hungry for worship. On Sunday morning, sometimes we're still waking up and we're not quite as, but it's also important. But everybody in that room was just, all in into worship. And so leading worship for a recovery ministry, that was incredible. Another experience that I recall is actually back in 2014. I was a delegate for the Global Young Missions Convocation, or Global Young People's Convocation for the UMC. It's like the general conference for kind of youth and young people. And we went to the Philippines, actually with Reverend Jay Clark. And we had the opportunity on Sunday morning to actually go to United Methodist Church in the Philippines. And that was just such a special moment. I didn't know the language, but I knew the liturgy. And just a reminder that we are a global church. We, God knows no country, knows no race. And so that was just really powerful for me.
Yeah.
I'll go. Well, I've had several experiences leading worship that have been really powerful. Like my first Sunday here at Pulaski Heights, that was really powerful because I remember just feeling a sense of, peace with being with this worship community for the first time. But, oddly, one of my most powerful experiences was when I was not leading worship.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm involved in a organization called the Fellowship United Methodist in Music, Worship, and Arts. I do a lot of events with them, and it's a coalition of worship artists from all across the country where we get together and do various events annually and biannually and things like that. And there was one convocation that we had where there's over 300 people that are all worship leaders and worship artists of various sorts, and just some of those experiences in worship when we come together in the congregational song that is produced from that is just so moving and powerful that it's any time that body of people sing together, it's amazing. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so hard to. There's so many. On any given week, I would say last Sunday was special. But I would say, since I've been doing this a long time, of course, I cherish my Sunday to Sunday worship experiences. But I've had some pretty big experiences. When you were talking, Brooke, it made me think about the things I did outside of our four walls, or wherever our four walls are. And I've had the opportunity to take my choir to General Conference. We're in Tampa, Florida, and we did the memorial service. And it was just such an honor to do it. But whenever I can worship and bring music to other groups and we worship together, I don't know, somehow it's extra special. Mm-hmm. A couple years ago, or 19, right before COVID hit, I took a group and we went to the Baltics, and we were in Latvia for their United Methodist General Conference. Mm-hmm. And I'll be really totally honest, we knew it was that, but we thought it ended up we were the we did not know we were advertised as the group to end their conference.
Oh,
and
wow.
so there was the bishop from Russia.
No
there was
way.
yes, and then there were representatives. It was in 3 languages, and I was like, oh my goodness. But it ended up being just amazing. And then their musicians, which was their modern contemporary musicians, but in a very unique way. Mm-hmm. And it somehow was spectacular. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it all meshed together is what I'm saying. All these different genres of music.
The Holy Spirit.
All the languages.
That's awesome.
And just what you said, we are all children of God. And it's great when you can find those commonalities or those moments when you see that. Mm-hmm. And I just wish everybody could see that.
For sure.
Yes, I had when I had an opportunity when I was in seminary to live in Thailand for 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And one of my favorite, I had got to worship in a number of different churches, but one of the orphanages that I served at while I was there for a while had a little bitty bamboo hut that, you know, all these kids had made streamers for to make it more decorative. But it was their little chapel, and it had a little cross that was cut out of some of the bamboo siding on the little hut. And getting up every morning with them at 5:30, and they would have worship every single day at this little orphanage, and they would just sing a couple of songs and hear a scripture and pray. And like you said, I didn't, you know, some of these songs were sung, and I was like, I don't know the language, I don't know the words, but I know what you're singing. I know what you're singing, you know, based on the spirit, based on the facial expressions of these children. You know, there's something there that I can connect to and relate to, even though, like, I have no clue what exact words you're saying in that language. And so I love what worship can do, what music can do in worship across language barriers and ethnic barriers and all of these barriers that I think we sometimes put on things God doesn't. And then another kind of instance that comes to mind was just last Christmas here at Pulaski Heights. I remember leaving after the 11 o'clock service, the 11 p.m. service. So leaving Christmas Day at 12:20 a.m. or whatever time it was. We'd been there all day. I think I was a part of all of the 6 worship services that we had. So completely worn out and completely exhausted, but just leaving the church, and for the first time after COVID, you know, since COVID, just experiencing so much worship and celebrating the birth of Christ. And just leaving at 12:20 a.m. and it was the best kind of tired, that like energized tired.
But, you know, and that's really getting back to what is worship? What is music in worship? That's really what I want to happen. I want people to leave the worship service feeling refreshed, ready for the week, feeling energized that we've given them something, whatever it is that they needed in that moment.
Yeah. And that's what I think that, you know, the power of worship can do. It is to give people and to speak to people wherever they are. Yeah, we talked about that some last time, but that a worship service, it's so neat, you know, from a preaching standpoint, that we'll have people in that they get something completely different out of the same, they both were there hearing the same thing. And they heard the Spirit speaking to them through my words in different ways. But God does that in worship and music and just all that we do. The Spirit moves.
I'm just laughing because I was thinking in choir, you know, I do a lot of talking and talk about the text and, you know, and throw in a little theology in there.
Yay!
But it always amazes me when somebody will come and say something really profound and said, "Oh, where'd you hear that?" And they're like, "Well, you told me that." And I'm like, "I did?"
For sure.
Maybe I did, but maybe they expounded on it or something.
Yes.
That has to be God, because it wasn't me.
Got just amazing things. Love it. Love that we get to be a part of that. So what are some of your, we mentioned, I asked you guys last time, but I definitely want to hear Frode, and maybe you guys have some other thoughts after sitting on it for a little bit. Some of your favorite worship songs or hymns?
We've been talking about like that moment right whenever the pandemic hit. And it wasn't soon after that the song "The Blessing" came out. I don't know if you recall, and it's based on which scripture? You said, "The Lord bless you and keep you, may His face shine upon you,
and be gracious unto
yes,
you."
Wherever that is in the gospel, yeah. And I don't know. There's that moment whenever that song came out, right when the pandemic hit. I was like, wow, this is the song that we needed. And I think it was written before March 2020. I think they wrote it before the pandemic. But the world, even like some classic worship leaders were familiar with this song. It just really felt like it brought everybody together. But that's been one in the past 2 years that has really just stuck with me. Worship really does bring people together.
Yeah.
It does. Well, I mean, I could mention like choral anthems that nobody would know what I was talking about that really are special to me and composers. But so if I stick to hymnology, hymns, traditional hymns, there's just so many. But I just am a big reader of the text and the words. And when the words of a hymn are, all of us musicians understand this, are married to a beautiful tune that just somehow works with that text and elevates that text, just like I was saying we want to do in worship. Those are the hymns that usually really speak to me. But some of my favorite hymns are the ones that speak to me personally. So I love one of the very first, and it's a very old-timey hymn, but whenever I was going through something as a dramatic theater-minded kid growing up in small towns where sports was everything, I had a moment I would go to the piano and play hymns. And so to me, and when my mom died, the first hymn I thought of, she died right before Christmas, just a few days before Christmas. And it was really tough because we had just like y'all, we had a full season of services. I went and played Blessed Assurance. Oh, wow. And so those tunes, I'm going to cry, I think, and I don't want to. Those tunes that really speak to your heart, words that speak to your heart, whatever they are, they become very personal, and you'll never forget them. My mother, who went through Alzheimer's, this speaks to the power of music, where she couldn't, in the end, remember, who she was speaking to or anything. On her very last day, I happened to be with her. I'm sorry, this is going to get a little heavy, but I didn't plan on going here. But I was there with her and on her bed, sitting next to her bedside. She's from Norway and loves this composer Grieg. And there's some famous tunes that people don't know they know because they hear them all the time. And one is called Morning Elegy, and I turned it on. It's an orchestral piece. And she squeezed my hand, and a tear came down her eye. And the last word she said was beautiful. Wow. And then she said, "Thank you, Frode." She hadn't said my name in a while. And that's the power of music. It reaches so far inside of us.
Absolutely.
That really wasn't the answer to your question, but I just felt like, there's so many hymns that do that for me.
Mm-hmm. That yes, it reaches inside of us, and there's so many, I've heard so many stories of, and experienced it in my own ministry, whether it is music or whether it is a piece of worship like a liturgical piece like the Lord's Prayer or the Apostles' Creed, where when folks have Alzheimer's and there's a lot that they can't remember, they can remember a song, or they can remember the Apostles' Creed or the Lord's Prayer. And there is something that is so deep inside of us that
becomes a part of you.
It becomes such a part of you. Exactly right. Like, it becomes such a part of you that that it's always there. And that's so powerful. One of my favorites is It Is Well With My Soul, that brings back memories of I remember, you remember certain things. And I remember when we were in the middle of the pandemic had just started. So in the middle of high shutdown. And then on a Saturday night or Saturday afternoon before Sunday, I was living in Jonesboro at the time, and we had a tornado run through the town, and it destroyed a huge portion of the town and the community, and it just devastated this community in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I called my music director and I said, all right, we're changing worship for tomorrow. We've got to do it. And so she sat down. I stayed at their house that night, her house that night, because I did not have power or internet and was having to make all these phone calls and try and coordinate worship. So I stayed at her house, and she got on the piano and started playing through different hymns, and one of them was It Is Well, and I was like, oh, we definitely need to sing that tomorrow. And that can be, music can be, and prayers can be, and worship can be for me, even when we're not there or we're not feeling it. When we come into a community and can sing something, we can find strength.
Absolutely.
And we can find faith and resilience sometimes when we don't know.
When you're saying, people might not know this, Brooke and I worked together at Central, and we went through the beginning of the pandemic together. When we were trying to remember that first week when, I don't know when you all shut down, but we shut down the decision was made on a Thursday. And then we had to put some content out / a worship service, and we weren't on television like you all, so we didn't have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
sure.
And like a lot of churches, we quickly adapted and learned. But we got together and we did blended worship because we thought, oh, this is only going to be 3 weeks.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we did too at my church. We did one service, blended worship. Yeah.
And then we quickly, like the rest of the world. And so then we branched out. But I mean, I remember how much work it was to put music out. But what's really interesting is nobody said, no minister, no worship leader said, well, maybe we just do a sermon in the scripture, in the prayer. No, there had to be music. Yes. In that time of need, of uncertainty for the world, people wanted music.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have a favorite song that has a story like I've shared so far, or at least not right now that's coming to me. But I think that, we said last episode that we did that for modern music, the music is changing so quickly that it's hard for Brooke and I to really latch on to modern worship music. But Firm Foundation is one that He Won't is one right now that really speaks to me. But I mentioned some hymns last episode that I like, and those are still real favorite ones of mine. But what Frode said about how when text and tune are married together brought back another hymn that I've always resonated with is Ruth Duck's Wash, O God, Our Sons and Daughters. The text is very, very, very powerful about just being washed together in community with with and then the tune Beach Spring is one that is just resonates with such peace and throughout the whole tune, and just
it's a great
it just marries together so well. And so thanks for reminding me. That's awesome.
Yes. Well, do you all have any favorite music or favorite musical artists that you'd like to share that is not outside of church music?
Well, I can appreciate all music as art and really kind of get down to anything. But I'd say if I were to listen to music that, like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to listen to music, I probably would pick something in the progressive rock or maybe alternative rock area. So something like Muse, but also something like the Beatles as well too. So that would be good. But I think music is also situational. So like if I'm cleaning the house or something, you're gonna put something like really energetic on. But if I'm working out, maybe some R&B or something, or some hip hop. You never know. So.
R&B, all right. For me, this is a really hard question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, very hard.
It's super
Basically,
tough.
it's what do you listen to on your Spotify or what's your playlist, right?
Yeah.
That's really personal.
It is kind of personal.
I also have a 2-year-old, so.
Yes. So
Like-
yours is it Blippi? Is that what the
Well, Bluey's the TV.
Bluey?
show,
That's
but
who I'm thinking of.
There's tons of kids' music out there. Casper Baby Pants is actually
That's it.
Oh my gosh.
the artist that is.
Casper Baby Pants. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He actually used to be in a rock band, so it's kind of it resonates with me musically.
Oh my
It does,
goodness.
So anyway, go ahead.
I think for me, I find myself really latching onto albums. Like an album will come out, and I'll listen to it until I wear it out, until I'm just sick of it. And so, like, some that I think of are Alabama Shakes, Sound and Color. That was a big one that I loved. Right now, I'm not going to lie, I'm loving Harry Styles' new album. It's so good. It's been the soundtrack
is
of
good.
my summer. Isn't it good?
It is good.
It's so good. And then Lizzo just came out with an album, and she's rocking it as well. So that's been fun to clean the house to. I recommend Lizzo while cleaning the house. Yeah, it's great.
Well, I don't know if I should share this with everyone, but so I studied to be a classical musician, but I worked my way through college and grad school by playing not that kind of music.
Yeah.
I was hired to play,
Heavy
restaurant gigs. No, I was a lounge lizard.
Okay.
If you want to know.
Yeah.
And I made, and it worked with my schedule because, so I'd play for parties, I'd play in hotel bars, and I would play, wherever I could get a gig. And so obviously it was whatever was popular then, and depending on the venue. When I was in Memphis, my first postgraduate school church job, I had a 5 years job at Bartlett United Methodist Church, which is a suburb of Memphis. On the weekends, I was playing at Paulette's, which is a French restaurant in the theater district, on Fridays and Saturday nights, piano bar. And they wanted strictly theater type music, Broadway tunes, Gershwin, Irving Berlin. And then, this was in the mid-'90s, so, all the love songs from all the movies,
And
My best
the era
friend's
of
wedding.
romantic comedies.
Yeah,
Yes.
when they were
Yes.
accompanied by, a real
sure.
sappy song. And, so people always ask me, what do you listen to? I rarely listen to in the car. Honestly, it's going to disappoint so many people. I'll listen to talk radio because
Really?
music's going on in my head all the time. But if I'm driving, like I had to drive a couple times back and forth from Fayetteville to Little Rock as I was moving, I have an eclectic mix. I also am like you. I can wear something out.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't want to hear it, after a while. But I love pop music. I grew up on pop and rock. I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s, And so that music still, if I hear a really great tune from when I was, what do we all do? We just turn it up. And, yeah, and I like to learn a lot of things. I think as I get older, there's some things that I realize I don't have to like and don't have to listen to.
Yeah.
So there's certain genres, of popular music I don't listen to. And I won't say it because I don't want to offend anybody. But, and I think also all genres of music inform us as musicians.
For sure.
And honestly, getting back to what we do in the church will make us better music leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of this conversation and for all that y'all do in the church to help amplify the worship and allow God to move in that. Music is so very important. And thank you for coming and to being a part of this tonight, but then also being a part of what we do in worship and participating in that, whether you worship with us in person or online or via broadcast. We thank you for worshiping with Pulaski Heights. So have a great week, walk with Jesus, and tell somebody about Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church.